Austria showed everyone that they are no pushovers by topping their group at the Euro 2024. Their tactics seems to be very pragmatic and efficient, and despite losing against France, I feel like they would have drawn that game if it weren't for the own goal. Ralf Rangnick took over the Austrian national team just after the chaos that was his reign at Manchester United. And by the chaos, I don't mean inflicted or created by him, but by what surrounded the team at that time. He has an impressive number of teams under his belt so far, and he led Hoffenheim and RB Leipzig to new heights during his managerial career. However, what he showcases managing Austria is noteworthy. Austria wasn't playing badly before him, but they had some poor results before he took over. So far in this tournament, his tactic relies heavily on gegenpressing and on direct football. In all three group stage games, a 4-2-3-1 formation was preferred. Football Manager players would say that it is the most suitable formation for a gegenpressing style of play. In goal, a sweeper keeper on support. This player can also be assigned a defend duty. I did not see Patrick Pence rushing out his goal at all, but he becomes a passing option when his team needs him to. In front of him, two fullbacks on support and two ball-playing defenders on defend duty. The fullback role was preferred ahead of the wingback one, as the wide defenders prioritized defending in the group stage games. However, since both Stefan Posch and Alexander Pras ventured forward when their team was in a prolonged possession, I asked them to get further forward. And cross more often is for a different moment of play. The two defensive midfielders can be assigned a variety of roles, but I consider them to be a halfback and a deep line playmaker. At times, Austria attacked in a 2-4-3-1 with the two center backs high up the pitch, but there are moments when the defensive midfielder dropped deep in the defensive line to cover, especially when they faced Poland that had two strikers. The front four are two inverted wingers, an advanced playmaker, and an advanced forward. The two wingers are on support, as both Romano Schmidt and Patrick Wimmer prioritized providing the striker with goal-scoring passes or crosses rather than scoring themselves. They are assigned inverted winger roles as we need them to tuck inside when the team is in possession, to make room for the fullbacks to overlap and cross when the opportunity arises. The advanced playmaker, Marcel Sabitzer, is assigned an attacking duty role as he had moments when he ventured towards the goal, trying and even succeeding to score. The striker, Marko Arnautovic, must be able to move into channels, finding the best areas to attack into. His mentality, positive, as Austria had a forward-thinking attitude in all three group stage games, irrespective of their opponent. In possession, fairly narrow attacking width and focused play through the middle. They do tend to overload the midfield areas before releasing the players on the flanks so they could cross the ball into the box. Play out of defense, shorter passing directness and a higher tempo. Austria have quickened the build-up play, especially when they sensed the chance of a counter-attack. Low crosses and run-at defense. Run-at defense ties very well with the shorter passing directness and a higher tempo. In transition, counter-press, counter and distribute the ball to the defense through short kicks. Out of possession, a high press and a higher defensive line. Austria does not shy from trying to stop their opponents high up the pitch, especially because they use a counter-press system, and when it is bypassed, the high defensive line being close helps recovering the ball. But beware that without the proper players, as fast as you can find for defenders, your team may get caught up high up the pitch and countered against. Trigger press much more often and prevent the goalkeeper's short distribution. And trap outside, as Austria tried to push their opponents outside when defending, crowding the defensive area. Austria proved to be a dark horse so far in the tournament, and they have their chance at the trophy if they continue playing like this. And Ralf Rangnick proved once again that he's a great tactician who prepares his teams very well. Switzerland has qualified to the Euro 2024 quarterfinals and did so by eliminating the title holders, Italy, in an emphatic fashion. The Swiss qualified in the round of 16 after finishing second in their group consisting of Germany, Hungary and Scotland. They won against Hungary, drew against Scotland, and were seconds away from providing their first upset in this tournament. So, Italy, you had your warning. Surprisingly though, the Swiss national team was in an unrest state before the tournament as they lost a lot of points in games they should have won in the qualifiers. Romania, Belarus and Kosovo took advantage from a wasteful Switzerland. But Murat, Yakin and his team seem to have completed their redemption arc, playing fine football so far at the Euro 2024 and deservedly qualifying in the quarterfinal stage. A 3-4-2-1 or a 3-6-1 formation was used by the Swiss in 3 of their 4 games played in the tournament. a sweeper keeper in goal with a defend duty. Jan Sommer is not the type of keeper to rush out of his goal, so the defend duty suits him better. 3 at the back, with 2 wide center backs, 1 on defend and 1 on support, and 1 central defender on defend duty. Manuel Akanji was a pivot in the defense, covering when needed. While his teammates Fabian Scher and Ricardo Rodriguez helped the possession game, Ricardo Rodriguez more than his teammate. In front of them, a group of 4 players made of a winger on attack, a box-to-box midfielder, a mezzala on support, and an inverted winger on attack. Dan Ndoi has ventured forward quite often so far, but he stuck close to the touchline more than his left side teammate. But, for the times he did tuck inside, a cut inside with the ball player instruction was chosen. Remo Freuler and Granit Xhaka proved to be difficult to be assigned roles in this tactic. They could be defensive midfielders, in which case a segundo volante and a roaming playmaker may be chosen. But Switzerland did not seem to play with defensive midfielders, at least in my opinion, as they pressed their opponents quite often and in high positions. So, to best mimic Remo Freuler's and Granit Xhaka's movements, from a central midfielder area, box-to-box midfielder and mezzala roles were chosen. Yet further forward, player instruction for Remo Freuler. And Michel Ebischer is an inverted winger, as his movement was towards the middle of the pitch, creating space for Ricardo Rodriguez and covering for Ruben Vargas. Stay wider for him. And the front 3 are an attacking midfielder on support duty, a trequartista and a pressing forward. Fabian Rieder is the passer, the creator. His main priority is to provide the attacking players with good passes and creating goal-scoring opportunities. I debated long and hard what role Ruben Vargas may be assigned, and I chose trequartista as in the game, with a stay wider player instruction. The player starts from a winger position and cuts inside either with the ball or moving into channels, the same way Ruben Vargas does for Switzerland. Shadow striker may also work here, but as I said, the trequartista acts more like a winger when positioned in the wide area. And Brel Embolo is a pressing forward, nagging the defenders, trying to beat the offside trap and choosing the best channels to run into. His mentality, positive, no doubt about it. Switzerland have played with a positive approach irrespective if the opponent was Hungary, Germany or Italy. In possession, fairly wide attacking width, play out of defense, shorter passing directness and a slightly higher tempo. Run a defense and be more disciplined. Whenever Switzerland picked up the ball, they were very aggressive in their attack, trying to find the best and fastest routes towards the goal. Be more disciplined was chosen, as in my opinion, Switzerland attacked as a unit, using the force of the group rather than using the individual skills of certain players. In transition, counter-press, counter, and distribute the ball to the defense through short kicks. Out of possession, high press and higher defensive line, trigger press more often and trap outside. Switzerland seemed to try and be compact when defending, covering inside areas and pushing their opponents out wide. Shoki may have been better than Gelato in the round of 16, but Switzerland must be sure to keep their focus and maintain the same level of football if they want to go even further in the tournament. Romania has qualified in the knockout stage of the Euro 2024 by topping their group for the first time in their history. Romania had a very good game against Ukraine, winning 3-0, which proved helpful for the next 2 matches. Even though they lost against Belgium and drew against Slovakia, Romania's game seemed to be different than what the nation is used to expect from the national team. As many of you know, Romania had a golden generation led by Gheorghe Hagi, and that golden generation really did wonders, even winning against a very good Argentinian team. However, as that generation slowly retired, there was no one to live up to the same level. But Eduard Iodănescu and the players could turn it around and instead reminded the fans that this national team can invoke the same emotions the Golden Generation did almost 30 years ago. That is why Eduard Iordănescu asked the journalists to not dub his team as a second Golden Generation, but one that wants to win by desire, attitude and courage. And so, we arrive at how the Romanian national team managed to top their group and play well. The tactical setup seems to be a simple one, without too many complicated instructions. A 4-1-4-1 formation most of the times, with the goalkeeper on defending goal. The only thing needed from the goalkeeper is to keep the ball out of the net, and Florin Niță did that very well during the group stage games. A wingback on support on the right side. A fullback on support may also work here, but Andrei Rațiu is an adventurous player, so the wingback role seems to suit him better. A ball-playing defender and a central defender on defend duty. The ball-playing defender is Radu Drăgușin, as he has tried to take the ball out of the defense at times, either by himself, short passes or through pinpoint long balls. And a wingback on support on the left side. I debated if this player should have the attack duty instead, as Nicușor Bancu has ventured forward quite often. But, to keep it balanced, I chose the support duty. A defensive midfielder on defend duty in front of the defense. This role was chosen as it offers the ability for the player to participate in the attack if the possession is prolonged. And Marius Marin has joined the attack when the opportunity presented itself. Two wingers on support duty. The winger role was chosen as it instructs the players to stay wider, and the player instruction of cut inside was added, as both wingers cut inside often when they arrive at the opposition's box. In the central area, we have a box-to-box midfielder and a central one, on support duty. The box-to-box midfielder is a role that seems to best suit Răzvan Marin, as he often defends and attacks with ease. And the striker is a complete forward on support duty, as we need a role that would have hold-up ball as instruction. As Romania has brought to this year's Euro only strikers who are tall and strong, have a good hold-up ball and can attack the goal when needed. As mentality, positive, but one can argue that Romania seemed to play more with a cautious mentality and changed to positive only when they felt that the balance of the match changed in their favor. In possession, fairly wide attacking width, slightly shorter passing directness, and a slightly lower tempo and play for set pieces. With the cautious mentality, the passing directness becomes standard and the tempo slightly lower, and the be more disciplined option was chosen, as to me, it was clear that Eduard Iordănescu has asked his players to keep the shape of the setup, attacking only within its boundaries. In transition, surprisingly to me, counter-press, even though at times. So, you may take it off if you think it's better. Counter, and I left the goalkeeper ball distribution part unticked, as Florin Niță seemed to have taken his own decisions depending on the game moment. Out of possession, mid-block and standard defensive line, even though often, Romania seemed to play with a low block and a low or very low defensive line. But I would not recommend this setup in Football Manager 2024, as it invites a lot of pressure which does turn into a lot of goals conceded, so it beats the purpose. Trigger presses more often, as Romania did have spells of time when they pressed their opponents quite efficiently, mainly in the games against Ukraine and Slovakia. And trap outside. I noticed in the games against Belgium and Slovakia that the Romanian defense left the opposition's wingers and the wingbacks quite free on the touchline, choosing to crowd the box instead. What Romania achieved at the Euro 2024 so far is important for two reasons. It brings the team even closer to the fans, and it gives the Romanians the chance to cheer for the national team in a very, very long time. These four teams have offered entertaining football during the Euro 2024 tournament. Even though some reached farther than others in the tournament, all of them showed a desire to win for their countries. Georgia has fielded a 5-3-2 formation, defensive at times, but had clinical counter-attacking moments. A goalkeeper on defend duty in goal. In front of him, a 5 at the back made of 2 fullbacks on support duty and 3 central defenders on defend duty. The fullbacks have the responsibility of giving the formation its width by gradually going up in possession. So, cross more often and get further forward as player instructions for both, and mark tighter for the left-sided one. Tackle harder for the central defenders. The midfield trio is made of a box-to-box midfielder, a ball-winning midfielder on defend duty, and a central midfielder on support duty. They are all asked to mark tighter, and the central midfielder is also asked to get further forward. And the front two are a pressing forward on attack duty and an advanced forward. I chose the pressing forward role for George Micautaze, as he has been the most persistent and dangerous attacking player for Georgia. which Kvaratskhelia was asked to close down more often and mark tighter. As you noticed, almost all the players are asked to mark tighter, and this is due to Georgia being a very aggressive team when defending, trying to give their opponents as little time as possible on the ball. As mentality, I chose cautious. In possession, standard attacking width, standard passing directness and a higher tempo, play for set pieces and be more disciplined. In transition, they did counter-press and prefer to regroup when possible, but they did counter, a lot. I let the goalkeeper decide on the ball distribution type. Out of possession, a low block and a lower defensive line. Beware that this is a very inefficient and goal-inviting setup in Football Manager 2024. If this is too defensive, then switch to a mid-block and a standard defensive line. Trigger press less often and trap outside. Georgia have been a compact team that prioritized defending and counter-attack football. A setup that brought them a prestigious win over Portugal and a run to the second round of the tournament. Turkey fielded a 4-2-3-1 most of the times, so this is the setup we will focus on. A sweeper keeper on defend duty. In front of him, a back four made of two ball-playing defenders on defend duty, a wingback and an inverted wingback on attack duty. Mert Muldur has joined the attack every time the opportunity presented itself, but through constant overlaps, while Ferdi Diolu took advantage of his technical skills to become an extra option in the midfield when possible. In front of them, a deep line playmaker and a roaming playmaker on support duty. With this setup, you can notice that there is no natural defensive-minded midfielder. This is due to Turkey playing quite up the field when in possession, which integrated a deep line playmaker in the defensive line alongside the ball-playing defenders. Stay wider for him, as he covered the flank when not in possession, giving freedom to the left-sided winger to cut inside and to the inverted wingback to underlap him and overload the attacking midfield area. An inverted winger on support and one on attack duty. Arda Güler is on support duty as he often drifted from his assigned position, taking up the role of Hakan Çalhanoğlu when he got up the pitch. Run from position for him. An attacking midfielder role on attack duty for Orkun Kökçü and the pressing forward on attack duty for the striker. His mentality, positive. In possession, fairly wide attacking width, pass into space and play out of defense, slightly shorter passing directness and a slightly higher tempo, and mixed crosses. In transition, counter press, counter, and distribute the ball to the defense through short kicks, and out of possession, a high press and a standard defensive line. Trigger press more often and prevent the goalkeeper short distribution. Unlike Turkey, Slovenia preferred to defend and hope for the best, which took them to the second round of the tournament. A classic 4-4-2 formation with a goalkeeper on defend duty in goal, a back four made of two fullbacks and two central defenders all on defend duty, two wingers on support duty on the flanks, one box-to-box midfielder and one center midfielder on support duty. The box-to-box midfielder is asked to mark tighter to give as little time on the ball as possible to the opposition. One deep line forward and one advanced forward on attack duty. I know that the highlight of the Slovenian team may have been Benjamin Šeško for a reason or another, but to me, the engine of this tactic was Andras Sporar, a player who seemed to not shy away from dropping deep to collect passes or to link up play for his striker teammate. His mentality, positive. In possession, fairly wide attacking width, shorter passing directness and a standard tempo, mixed crosses and be more disciplined. In transition, counter press, counter and distribute the ball to the defense. I let the goalkeeper choose the method for ball distribution. Out of possession, a mid-block, standard defensive line and trigger press slightly more often. Slovenia may have not had a lot of goal-scoring opportunities, but they gave all for the team and secured an historic run in the tournament, holding Portugal to a draw for 120 minutes. Hungary, unlike the aforementioned teams, did not qualify from the group stage, but they did provide one of the moments of the tournament with a 1-0 goal in the 90 plus 10 minutes. A 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1 formation for Marco Rossi's team, with the goalkeeper on defend duty in goal. A 3 at the back made of two ball-playing defenders on defend duty and one central defender on cover duty. Two wingers on support, which must also defend when needed, creating a 5 at the back. The wingers could also be assigned wingback on support duty roles. In the midfield area, a box-to-box and a central midfielder on support duty. And in front, a trio made of two attacking midfielders, one on support and one on attack duty. Dominik Szoboszlai is the engine of this team. He roams from position, dropping deep or wide to collect the ball, or running in behind the striker to take a chance at the goal. And the striker is assigned a deep line forward on attack duty role. His mentality, positive. In possession, fairly wide attacking width and play out of defense, shorter passing directness and a slightly higher tempo, and mixed crosses. In transition, counter-press, counter, and distribute the ball to the defense, and I let the goalkeeper choose the ball distribution method. Out of possession, mid-block and a standard defensive line. Trigger press more often and trap outside. Hungary tried to be compact in defense and to play more on the counter-attack. But besides the 90 plus 10 minute against Scotland, they failed often using this playing style. All four teams have done more than expected of them at times during the tournament, and irrespective of their results, they are part of Europe's football elite this summer. Portugal has used not one but two tactics at the Euro 2024, and both were efficient for them. Okay, maybe not so much against Czechia. Portugal topped their group, but mainly due to the late goal against Czechia and the result they obtained against Turkey. However, Portugal's game improved match after match. Against France though, they have played the best game at the tournament, in my opinion, and Vitinha seemed to be the heartbeat of the team, linking the defense and the attack. Let's not overlook the fact that two extraordinary players may have ended their stories with the Euro tournament, Cristiano Ronaldo and Pepe. Cristiano Ronaldo has been more static than I used to see him play for Portugal, but let's be fair, whether he likes it or not, age takes a toll. But what he did great for Portugal and helped his team was drawing opponents onto him, and often two of them, which created spaces for his teammates to exploit. And Pepe, honestly, no words. He defended very well at times, giving confidence to his teammates, which encouraged a more expansive play from Matjaž. I used to think that Roberto Martinez was not a great tactician when he was managing Belgium, and I used to say that the players he had at his disposal helped him. I stand corrected. Roberto Martinez showed, at least to me, that he has tactical principles he encourages his team to follow, and that he understands his team's strengths and weaknesses and uses them to his team's advantage. In the 4-2-3-1 tactic, the goalkeeper is a sweeper keeper. Diogo Costa was not needed as a passing option during open play, so the duty assigned to him is the defend one. The back four is made of two wingbacks on attack duty and two ball-playing defenders. The wingbacks play a crucial role in this formation, as both Nuno Mendes and João Cancelo dribbled on their flanks, adding extra players in Portugal's attacks. I would assign a stopper duty to Matjaž, mainly because when he was in possession, he went up the pitch, helping the passing game. I know the duty does not require him to do so, but taking more risks may help him play in this way. A defensive midfielder on defend duty and a roaming playmaker as the two defensive midfielders. João Willy had a crucial role of holding the back line together with Pepe, especially in the game against France. This provided his line teammate and the wingbacks the opportunity to move freely, overloading their opponent's final third. Vitinha was the team's heartbeat, as I mentioned. He truly was the link between defense and attack, and this was more noticeable in the game against France. Advanced playmaker is the role assigned to Bernardo Silva, on support duty. He was a false winger, occupying the flank only to drag the opposing fullback onto him. An attacking midfielder role on support duty assigned to Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes has been quiet during his team's games, in my opinion, but he was important to the passing game, being there for either Vitinha, João Palhinha or Bernardo Silva to receive the pass and move the ball forward, creating dangerous opportunities. Rafael Leao was an engine on his flank, tormenting his opponents with silky dribbling and extraordinary acceleration. An inverted winger on attack duty was assigned to him, as his starting position was on the flank, but he always looked to dribble inside, cutting in the opposition's box with the ball, and then either cross for one of his teammates or shooting himself. His movement also provided Nuno Mendes the opportunity to overlap often. And for Cristiano Ronaldo, I chose a deep line forward on attack duty, even though a target forward role seems more suitable for him. But in Football Manager 2024, the target forward role does not seem to play too well in my opinion. His mentality, positive. In possession, fairly wide attacking width, play out of defense, shorter passing directness and a slightly higher tempo, and whipped crosses. In transition, counter press, counter and distribute the ball to the defense. As Diogo Costa chose the way he distributed the ball, I let him do the same in the game. Out of possession, high press and a higher defensive line. Trigger press more often and prevent the goalkeeper short distribution. In the 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1 formation, the positions change, obviously, but the approach remains the same. The formation emulates the game against Czechia, as against Georgia, Portugal fielded more or less the second team. Diogo Dalot appeared in the starting 11, replacing João Palhinha. The goalkeeper is the sweeper keeper on defend duty, no change here. The back three is made of 2 ball-playing defenders on defend duty and 1 libero on support. Ruben Dias took up a more familiar role as he sometimes plays in a similar tactic at Manchester City, and Nuno Mendes was told to stay wider. Diogo Dalot was assigned a wing-back on support role, going up the field gradually when his team was in possession, where João Cancelo was assigned an inverted wing-back role on attack duty. He had moments when he drifted inside, taking up a midfielder or advanced midfielder position, overloading the midfield area in the opposition's final third. A roaming playmaker role for Bruno Fernandes and a box-to-box midfielder one for Vitinha. Bruno Fernandes roamed from his position in the game against Czechia, linking up play where needed. Vitinha was the second engine of the team, providing a more defensive option when his team was defending or under a counter-attack. But when his team was in possession, he went up the pitch, providing a passing option and overloading the final third of the opposition. The front three kept the roles from the 4-2-3-1 formation. As mentality, positive. In possession, fairly wide attacking width, play out of defense, shorter passing directness and a slightly higher tempo, and whipped crosses. In transition, counter-press, counter, and distribute the ball to the defense. Again, we let the goalkeeper to choose the distribution type. Out of possession, high press and a higher defensive line, trigger press more often and prevent the goalkeeper's short distribution. As said, Portugal did not play bad at all during the tournament. They did start quite underwhelming against Czechia, but to me, they seemed like they upped their game gradually. It was an upset on their part against France, and it means an end of an era, but I'm glad they held their heads high. Spain and Germany have offered entertaining football so far in the tournament. While part of the favorites for the trophy preferred a more cautious, tactical approach in their games so far, both Spain and Germany adopted a direct style of play, utilizing very well their strengths. For this reason, at least for me, this is the most anticipated game, as it will be a clash of direct, expansive football, and I'm curious which of the teams is going to take a step back, if any. Spain dominated their group, winning 3 out of 3 games, scoring 5 goals and conceding none. The only team that managed to score against them was Georgia through an own goal. Spain overwhelmed all their opponents so far, adopting a pressing game and pushing their opponents as close to their goal as possible, even Italy. On the other hand, even though they won their group, Germany dropped points against Switzerland and barely managed to draw that game thanks to their super sub Niklas Füllkrug. Germany have utilized the direct style of play, men marking up top and pressing their opponents, forcing their mistake. Spain has fielded the 4-3-3 formation so far, and for the first time in many years, they managed to integrate wingers in their possession game, and it shows. A sweeper keeper on defend duty in goal. The duty for this player does not matter if the goalkeeper is vigilant and protects the goal. In front of him, a back four made of 2 fullbacks on attack duty and 2 ball-playing defenders on defend duty. The fullback role was preferred instead of the wingback one, as the fullbacks advanced gradually while the team was in possession. Also, if we look at the instructions assigned to each role, we notice that the wingbacks are told to cross from byline, which is something the Spanish defenders did not do so far. They are both told to stay wider to provide their teammates with the width needed to avoid the opposition's pressing game. Marc Cucurella has cut inside quite often, switching places with both Nico Williams and Fabian Ruiz. As assigning an inverted wingback role would be a stretch in this case, I asked the player to cut inside with the ball to make him cut inside when the opportunity arises. In front of them, Rodri is assigned a regista role. This is because Rodri has been the passing hub of the team, dispatching the ball wherever needed. He's asked to shoot more often to mimic his style of play. Fabian Ruiz and Pedri are assigned a mezzala and a center midfielder role on support duty. Fabian Ruiz was assigned the mezzala role as he took up wider positions when Nico Williams or Marc Cucurella cut inside. And Pedri may have seemed to play under the radar so far, but his work was tremendously important for his team as he got further forward and either dragged an opponent onto him or linked up play between the right flank and the midfield areas. Get further forward and roam from position as player instructions for him. And the front three are assigned winger on support, inverted winger on attack, and the pressing forward on attack duty. Lamine Yamal wasn't as expansive as Nico Williams and seemed to hug the touchline more often than his teammate. While Nico Williams seemed to be the most dangerous out of the Spanish players, the inverted winger role player instructions seem to have been created for him. I only added a roam from position instruction as the player looked for space and moved into it when possible. And Alvaro Morata is the player nagging the opponents, doing anything possible to move into channels and getting into goal scoring opportunities. His mentality, positive and sometimes attacking, maybe against Georgia. In possession, fairly wide attacking width, play out of defense, shorter passing directness and a slightly higher tempo. Low crosses and work the ball into the box. Spain has crowded the opposition's box, sometimes overwhelming their opponent's defense, and run a defense as Spain attacked the opposition's box whenever the chance appeared. In transition, counter-press, counter and distribute the ball to the defense through short kicks. Out of possession, high press and a much higher defensive line. The much higher defensive line helps overwhelming the opponent as any ball breaking the counter-press is then taken over by the remaining defenders. Trigger press more often and prevent the goalkeeper short distribution. While Germany is going to use a 4-2-3-1 formation most likely, with a sweeper keeper on attack duty in goal. It's Manuel Neuer after all. A back four made of 2 wingbacks on attack duty and 2 ball-playing defenders on defend duty. The wingbacks and the wingers' movements are Germany's most important assets so far, besides Toni Kroos's passes. The 2 players in front of them are assigned the regista and the defensive midfielder role on support duty. To be honest, the regista role is the closest role I could find to match Toni Kroos's style of play. The important thing is to make this player drift wide and stay on the defensive line when the team is in possession, starting attacks with pinpoint passes. Of course, he is told to stay wider, and the players up top are 2 inverted wingers on support duty, 1 advanced playmaker on support, and 1 deep line forward on attack duty. The important thing for the wingers is to tuck inside when possible, making room for the wingbacks to move into. Ilkay Gundogan has been quiet so far for Germany, but this is due to him being a passing hub for his team, dispatching and creating goal-scoring opportunities for the attacking trio. And Kai Havertz was not a standard striker, being utilized as a player that could come deep to take the ball, dragging opponents onto him, or attacking the goal late in the build-up. The front 4 players have marked tighter as player instructions, as they man-marked their opponents, especially in the game against Denmark. His mentality, positive and sometimes attacking. In possession, fairly wide attacking width, play out of defense, slightly higher or standard passing directness, and a slightly higher tempo. Mixed crosses and run a defense. In transition, counter-press, counter, and distribute the ball to the defense through short kicks. Out of possession, high press and a higher defensive line. Trigger press more often and prevent the goalkeeper short distribution. Spain and Germany seem to have similar tactics, even though different formations. They are both direct in possession and defend fiercely and high up the pitch. If they don't shut down and cave into pressure, we might be in for quite a match. Spain and England have reached the Euro 2024 final. 2 contradictory styles of play, until now, got to the final of the tournament facing a wide array of opponents and playing styles. Spain have been consistent throughout the tournament, playing with the same tactical setup. Okay, maybe against France they started in a formation closer to a 4-2-3-1, but they ended up in the same 4-3-3 we got used to by now. Spain has surprised their opponents with players that got into unusual positions, like the left fullback Marc Cucurella, who often drifted inside, pushing the left center midfielder onto the flank and the left winger more centrally. When Rodri got up in possession as well, this created an overload on the left flank, which prompted the fullback and winger to request the pass, receiving it and then driving into an open space. This pattern of play repeated itself throughout the tournament. So how did they do it? You should know that Spain's tactic was covered before on this channel, review for the game against Germany. But stick around, as the formation was slightly different against France. As said, a 4-3-3 formation, with the sweeper keeper on defend duty in goal. In front of him, we have 2 fullbacks on attack duty and 2 ball-playing defenders on defend duty. The fullbacks often overlap, but not aggressively like the wingbacks. They gradually go up the pitch in possession. On the left flank, Marc Cucurella regularly drifted inside, which I tried to recreate by asking him to cut inside with the ball. It's not ideal, but he was not an inverted wingback either. Both fullbacks are asked to stay wider. Rodri is a difficult player to assign a role to. He could be a deep line playmaker, but the way the game sees this role is not 100% suitable to Rodri. I chose the Regista one as he can be aggressive in possession, pushing up the field, creating overloads at times. he also needs to be the passing hub of this team, playing pinpoint passes when needed. The two central midfielders were assigned a roaming playmaker and a mezzala on support duty. Pedri played more like a central attacking midfielder, but Dani Olmo also helped the possession game on the flank against France. For this reason, I chose the roaming playmaker role for him. Fabian Ruiz may not be a mezzala all the time, but in the game, this role interprets very well how Fabian Ruiz played at times, switching places with Marco Correa and Nico Williams. In front, a winger on support for Lamine Yamal. We need him to start from a wider position and cut inside when the opportunity presents itself. On the left flank, we have an inverted winger on attack. We need Nico Williams to start from a wider position, but then cut inside and dribble more. And Morata has been assigned a deep line forward role on attack duty. Against France, his role changed, as he dropped deeper to get involved in the passing game, which took away from his goal-scoring abilities. His mentality, positive. In possession, fairly wide attacking width, play out of defense, shorter passing directness, and a slightly higher tempo. Low crosses and run a defense. Against previous opponents, Spain worked the ball into the box, but against France, they did not seem to do so. In transition, counter-press, counter, and distribute the ball to the defense through short kicks. Out of possession, high press and a higher defensive line. Trigger press more often and prevent the goalkeeper short distribution. England, though, did not play an expansive football until now, but focused on the result. What they did more than Spain was to switch their formation around, starting in a 4-2-3-1 against Serbia, then switching to a 4-3-3 against Slovenia, and ending up in a 3-4-3 against Netherlands. We will focus on the 3-4-3, with a sweeper keeper on defend duty. In front of him, a wide centre back on support duty for Kyle Walker, a central defender on defend duty for John Stones, and a ball-playing defender on defend duty for Marc Guéhi. Marc Guéhi is told to stay wider when in possession, to cover for Kieran Trippier's forward runs in case of counterattacks. Kobbie Mainoo and Declan Rice proved to be difficult to choose roles for, but I settled on a segundo volante on support duty for Kobbie Mainoo and a defensive midfielder on defend duty for Declan Rice. Get further forward and tackle harder for Kobbie Mainoo. He played a little more aggressively with and without the ball against Netherlands than he did in previous games, and tackle harder for Declan Rice. Complete wingback on attack duty for Bukayo Saka, unconventional, but Bukayo Saka did defend at times, helping Kyle Walker on the right flank and containing Cody Gakpo very well. And a wingback on attack duty for Kieran Trippier. Dribble more and cut inside for Bukayo Saka and cross more often for Kieran Trippier. Phil Foden seemed to play without a designated role until now in the tournament. For this reason, I chose the trequartista role for him, as this role is very expansive in the game and gives the player the freedom to roam around. Jude Bellingham has played more like a passer, picking up the ball from wide areas and bringing it into the central zones. For this reason, he was assigned an attacking midfielder role on attack duty, with the instructions of roaming from position and staying wider, and a deep line forward role on attack duty for Harry Kane. As mentality, positive. In possession, fairly wide attacking width, play out of defense, shorter passing directness, and a standard tempo. Until the semi-finals, England played using a lower or a slightly lower tempo, but in the semi-final, they upped the tempo a bit, which also helped their attacking game. Mixed crosses, play for set pieces, and be more disciplined. What the be more disciplined option does is to ask the players to attack as a group, focusing on the tactical shape. In transition, counter press, counter, and distribute the ball to the defense through short kicks. Out of possession, high press, a higher defensive line, trigger press more often, and prevent the goalkeeper short distribution. There is every chance that both managers are going to change their tactical setup in order to surprise. The final is also going to be an expression, or not, of how each team was described throughout the tournament. Irrespective of how the game is going to be played, one thing is certain: one generation of players is going to receive the reward for their hard work.